You're listening to Simply the Best Sports Take, the best podcast breaking down the best stuff in sports with host Sean Bingham. His takes are so good, he dropped the mic, but then you wouldn't be able to hear him, and that would suck.
Welcome into STB Sports Take, Simply the Best Sports Podcast. I am your host, Sean Bingham, and happy Friday to all of you. It is Friday, January 10th. Kind of a cool day for me because I am an entrepreneur, as you likely know, and my really only business, I was going to say my main business, but really my only business is Adventure Hunt. We were on Shark Tank, by the way, you should check it out. But we do really cool scavenger hunts, treasure hunts. We've built out an app where you'll team up with people and then you'll solve clues and complete these challenges that guide you around town to an actual buried treasure chest. It's really fun. And we mainly do it as private events for other companies. And so it's like a team building event or a marketing or branding event. Really fun stuff. We're very busy. It's growing. It's awesome. So you should check it out, adventurehunt.com. But today, I made a little investment to franchise a place called Duck Donuts. And we have our grand opening this weekend, officially tomorrow morning. But tonight, it really kind of starts because we have our friends and family event, which is, obviously a soft opening, if you will, but then tomorrow's the grand opening. So kind of an exciting time. It's a pretty hands-off thing for me. I'm not super involved day-to-day by any means, but really fun, kind of exciting. So for those of you that are in Utah, if you hear this in time, you should come tonight or tomorrow. It's in South Jordan. You can find us on Facebook. But if you go to 106 South and go west past Bingham High School, it's up there around like 3200 West and 106 South, Duck Donuts. Anyway, kind of fun. Wishing all of you a very happy weekend. And we've got some cool stuff to talk about today because last night was Russell Westbrook's return to OKC. And of course, that also means Chris Paul playing against the Houston Rockets, which was his former team. And surprisingly, the Thunder blew out the Rockets, which is kind of funny. Westbrook had a pretty good game. He did have 7 turnovers, but he shot well, which is abnormal for him. Shot above 50%, had 34 points. But the Thunder get the last laugh. Chris Paul and the Thunder get the last laugh. I think Chris Paul is a man possessed, trying to prove he's still got a lot left in the tank, maybe trying to get traded to a contender. But ironically, the Thunder are in the playoffs as of right now, and they're playing as well as anyone. Almost as well as anyone. They're playing very, very well. And they've been on a winning streak. And anyway, they get the last laugh. But what I want to get into about this is Kendrick Perkins said something on Twitter about, Russell Westbrook being the greatest Thunder of all time. And then a sports writer said, what are you talking about? Let's be real, KD. And so then Kendrick Perkins comes back and says, well, we lost in the second round. I was on the team when we didn't have Russ, and KD lost in the second round as well. So what does that mean? Who cares if Russell Westbrook lost in the second round after KD left? It was the same thing, when KD didn't have Russ, which is true. Nobody can do it by themselves, right? We know that. So then it went back and forth, and then KD gets involved. Of course he did. KD gets involved and really goes after Perk about, his stats and how he averaged 2 and 3 in that series in our starting center and weak production. And Perkins goes back at him super hard and, of course, brings up the obvious, which is, bro, you made the weakest move in NBA history. You were up 3-1 on a team, and you left and joined them the next season and talked about how it must be hard to sleep at night knowing that you don't even really value your championships. Really, really brutal stuff. And anyway, so they go back and forth. And so it got me thinking, which, first of all, it's Russell Westbrook's night. Can we please just let it be Russell Westbrook's night? KD, you're already just such a disaster when it comes to social media, Twitter in particular. I'm glad he was at least tweeting from his actual verified account instead of some burners. But just a bad look for KD. But, Perk did, quote, start it, which I can't believe I'm even saying he started it. These are grown men, professional athletes. But anyway, got me thinking, what is the difference between the best player to ever play for a franchise and the greatest player to ever play for a franchise? And I do think there's a very distinct difference. In my opinion, the greatest player to ever play for a franchise is the guy you think of first when you hear that team name. It's the guy that meant the most to that franchise. And obviously that's always going to be a superstar, but it's not always the best player to ever play for that team. So in this particular instance, Kevin Durant is clearly the best player to ever play for the Oklahoma City Thunder. But I would say that Russell Westbrook is the greatest to ever play for the Oklahoma City Thunder. Because Westbrook, he stayed there for 3 years after Durant left, won an MVP, had 3 straight seasons of averaging a triple-double. He was 1B to Durant's 1A when that team went to the finals, which is as far as they ever got. So he was there for the Durant era, plus 3 more seasons, and he was always just a tick below Durant when they played together. And then Durant leaves, and kind of in a not so great kind of way, and Westbrook stays, gets that monster deal, has 3 straight seasons of triple doubles. So when I hear Oklahoma City Thunder, I do think Russell Westbrook. I do, and so I would agree Russell Westbrook is the greatest Thunder to ever play. But I think Kevin Durant is the best Thunder to ever play. He's clearly the better player. We get that. He's going to retire he'll retire as a top 5 guy, and Westbrook won't. So yeah, just something to think about. And so I really wanted to dive in and give some more examples. And I'm going to do a little game here, and I'm going to say a team, and I want you guys to think what's the first immediate name that comes to mind when I say a team. So I'll start with the Golden State Warriors. I'll give you a second. Now, we all know no one thought Kevin Durant, but Kevin Durant is the best Warrior to ever play. He is. Kevin Durant is the best Warrior to ever play, but he's not the greatest Warrior. We're immediately thinking Steph Curry. Steph Curry is for sure the first guy you thought of. And if not, maybe it was Klay Thompson, maybe it was Chris Mullin, maybe it was Tim Hardaway. It might have even been Draymond Green. There are 5 guys that I would think of when I hear Golden State Warriors before I would think of Kevin Durant, especially when it comes to greatness with that franchise. He was there for 3 years. He is the best. He won 2 Finals MVPs. So he is the best. He's the most talented player to ever play for the Warriors, but he's not the greatest Warrior. He doesn't mean the most to that franchise. He's not the guy you think of first. Who means the most to the franchise? So here's another one. And by the way, Wilt Chamberlain played for the Warriors as well. So, but I don't think of Wilt Chamberlain, but he would be he would be one of the best players to play for the Warriors, but he's not one of the greatest Warriors, at least not for me. It's those other guys. It's Curry, it's Klay, it's Tim Hardaway, it's Chris Mullin. So, okay, next team. Miami Heat. Dwyane Wade. Dwyane Wade is the name that comes to mind, but he's not the best Heat player ever. He's not. LeBron James clearly is. LeBron's best 4 seasons were in Miami. He won 2 regular season MVPs, 2 Finals MVPs. They went to the Finals 4 straight years, and he was the Finals MVP on the 2 championships they won. LeBron is a top 3 player of all time. He's clearly the best Heat player ever, but he is not the greatest. The greatest is definitely Dwyane Wade, no questions asked. And speaking of LeBron, what team do you think of when you hear the name LeBron James? The Cleveland Cavaliers. But he only won 1 championship there. He is now not even on that team. He's with the Los Angeles Lakers. He won 2 championships in another uniform with the Miami Heat. But when we hear LeBron James, we think Cleveland Cavaliers. So it's really kind of like name association is kind of what I think greatest of all time comes down to for a franchise. Okay, next one, Toronto Raptors. Vince Carter. I think Vince Carter. I hear Toronto Raptors, I think Vince Carter. I don't think Kawhi Leonard, but Kawhi is the best player to ever play for the Raptors. He is. Kawhi Leonard is the most talented player that has ever worn a Raptors uniform. And their only championship came because of him, and he was Finals MVP. But he was there for 1 season. He can't possibly be the greatest Raptor of all time after 1 season. I think Vince Carter, I think Chris Bosh, and I would think Tracy McGrady. But those guys, Bosh and McGrady, would fall a notch because McGrady had some fantastic seasons with the Houston Rockets, and Bosh had some fantastic seasons and his 2 championships with the Miami Heat, and he finished a Heat. So, Vince Carter for me. Okay, another one. Dallas Mavericks. Dirk Nowitzki. That's the first name. And I'll tell you what, he's the best and the greatest for the Mavericks, but I put this one on the list because I want to talk about Luka again. Luka will pass Dirk if he stays healthy and he stays with the Mavericks. I think it's going to take Luka only 5 or 6 seasons to be considered the greatest Maverick ever from now. So this is his second season. Give him 5 more after this. So by the time his 7th season is over, having played less than half the seasons in Dallas that Dirk did, I think you're going to view Luka as the greatest Maverick of all time. The guy's unreal. The Mavericks scored so big with Luka Doncic. It's unbelievable to me. The guy, he is the league MVP. He's that good. So I think give him 5 or 6 more seasons, and you'll view Luka as the greatest. Because ironically, I'm already thinking he might be the best. I think he already has more talent, ability, and skill than Dirk ever did. And call me blasphemous if you want. I think Dirk's an all-time great, and he's the greatest Maverick of all time. But I think Luka already has the skill set that Dirk just never, ever had. So anyway, okay, next one, Phoenix Suns. The Phoenix Suns. I tried to choose teams that were, wasn't totally obvious. I mean, I could have gone Chicago Bulls, and we're all thinking Michael Jordan. Phoenix Suns. Steve Nash. I think Steve Nash. He won 2 MVPs there. I think his best seasons were in Phoenix. He spent several years there. But I would say that Charles Barkley is the best Phoenix Sun ever. Barkley also won an MVP there, and he took them to the finals, where they lost in 6 games to Jordan's Chicago Bulls. And that was probably the best Suns season ever. And I would think, some people may disagree with me, but I feel very strongly that Barkley is the better player than Steve Nash. And so to me, Barkley is the best Phoenix Sun ever. Steve Nash might be the greatest, though. Or Kevin Johnson, honestly, might be the greatest Phoenix Sun ever. But we don't think of Barkley when we hear the Suns. We don't. Even though he won an MVP and went to the finals, we just don't think of Barkley. We think, when we hear Barkley, what do you think? You think Philadelphia 76ers. That's what we think. So it's word association. Okay, a couple more. This is fun. I'm wondering how close yours are matched up with mine. Okay, couple harder ones. Let's do some harder ones here. Boston Celtics. Boston Celtics. It's Larry Bird. And for me, he's the best and the greatest, but some may say Bill Russell is the greatest. Some may say Bill Russell is the best. We might even have some of you out there thinking Paul Pierce. Paul Pierce spent a lot of time in Boston. He did bring a championship back to the city. But for me, when I hear Boston Celtics, I think Larry Bird, and I think Larry Bird was also the best, the greatest and the best. Okay, Los Angeles Lakers. Kobe Bryant. Kobe Bryant. Magic Johnson. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Wilt Chamberlain again played here. Shaquille O'Neal. To me, it's Kobe Bryant. But guess what? We just named 1, 2, Kobe, Magic, Kareem, Wilt, Shaq. That's 5 names, but guess what? None of them is the best Laker ever. The best Laker ever is LeBron James. But we don't even think of the Los Angeles Lakers when we hear the name LeBron James because his brand is forever connected to Cleveland. It just is. And after that, second, it would be to Miami because he won 2 championships there, 2 league MVPs, and I do not think he'll do that in Los Angeles. I don't. His best years were in Miami. His most significant and most years were in Cleveland. But he is the best Laker ever. He's the best player. He's the top 3 player of all time, top 2. And he's currently on the Lakers in his 2nd season. So he's the best Laker ever. But he's not the greatest. He doesn't even make the list of top 5. You've got to put Kobe, Magic, Kareem, Shaq, Wilt ahead of him. So very interesting stuff. Kind of a fun game. So this all started because of Perk and KD, so thanks to those guys for fighting publicly for us. It was very entertaining. Hope you've enjoyed this. I do want to just end real quick here. Tomorrow is, of course, the NFL playoffs, and the lines in this whole weekend, and the lines have shifted. The favored teams are even more favored now than they were before, so there must have been some money being put elsewhere, but the Niners are favored by 7 now. It was like 6.5, so not a huge jump there. Ravens by 10 over the Tennessee Titans. Those games are both tomorrow. And then Sunday, the Chiefs by 10 over the Texans. And which, man, that's kind of a slap in the face to the Texans. The Texans are very talented. That goes back to my last podcast about Bill O'Brien. I think it's coaching. I think the Texans get better coaches in there. You'd see them finishing like 13-3, 12-4, and hosting playoff games instead of being wild cards at 10-6. You know. But Chiefs by 10, and then Packers by 5 over the Seahawks. And that one's a tough one for me. I'm still picking all of the favored teams to win. I'm not changing my predictions here the day before the games, although that would still be legal because they haven't played yet. But I'm going Packers and Chiefs. I'm taking all the home teams. Niners, Ravens, Chiefs, Packers. The biggest question mark for me is definitely the Seahawks and the Packers. I could very likely see the Seahawks beating the Packers. I don't really give the Vikings, Titans, or Texans much of a chance at all, though. I think those will be definitely the home teams, the favored teams. And then the Packers Seahawks, that'll be an interesting one Sunday. But anyway, that's all the time we have for today. Per usual, please share the podcast. We are on Spotify. We are on Apple Podcasts. We are on Google Podcasts. We are on SoundCloud. We are soon to be on YouTube. Love you guys. Share the podcast. Follow me on Twitter at Sean Bingham. Follow the Instagram at STB Sports Take. That is all the time I have for today. I am out. Peace.
Thanks for hanging with Simply the Best Sports Take. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast and check out stbsportstake.com. Simply the best in sports. 'Cause we are